Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at NIO. This was a stock analysis request from one of the followers, and I wanted to let you know that anyone can make these requests and I'll most likely cover them, especially if there is an actionable trade setup to follow. And in the case of this chart, we unfortunately have failed to create a more reliable structure to the upside, and we have only formed a three-wave move. We did not form here the fourth and the fifth to have a high probability trade setup that after a three-wave correction we would expect a reversal into at least another five-wave move to the upside, forming an even larger, at least ABC movement, if not something even more bullish. Now, what this really means is not that it cannot still extend higher, but it means that we don't necessarily have a very good edge in the market in a potential trade setup within this area, but we can still track a potential larger movement to still work out the upside, although this structure could be just an ABC movement within a correction, and it could be complete, meaning that we can actually go to new all-time lows without necessarily needing any additional continuation in this uptrend. And in this case, I will be tracking in the orange scenario a potential wave 1 to have formed a top here as part of a larger leading diagonal, that we would have here a correction in a wave 2, and this can still work out, especially as long as we hold here the $2.8 level at the 78.6% retracement, whereas if we break below that level, it would be a quite good signal that this structure is likely going to fail to extend higher, and that this low probability interpretation, where we have no edge, basically no significant edge anyway, we have still this area of support, but this interpretation would be even less likely to succeed in forming another move to the upside. Now, this can work as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a larger leading diagonal, but realistically it can also be an ABC movement, and we will be able to determine most likely what type of structure really is going to play out depending on the pattern that unfolds within this next move to the upside. And then we are actually also tracking a more bearish interpretation that could actually lead us to a new low temporarily before a larger correction. This is in the yellow scenario, where we would be tracking a larger 5-wave move to the downside, which after complete is expected to have a relief rally, but once that is done as well, we expect another 5-wave move to the downside, which would most likely lead to new all-time lows. And there are other bearish interpretations that could actually be tracked within this area, but right now I believe this is the scenario that we should focus on, and even in an extension within the wave 3, to be honest, here is still possible. But if we manage to break here above the resistance levels for the correction within the wave 4, we would also already have discarded that scenario as well, because we would have already have a break above the previous swing high here within this ABC movement in the yellow interpretation, meaning that the only area that we should really focus on right now is here at the levels between the $6 all the way up to the $18.3, and a break above the 61.8% retracement would be a signal that we can expect continuation to at least a larger degree, where this movement to the downside would most likely be done, and we would expect at least a larger correction. Not necessarily a larger push to the upside to new all-time highs, but at least another correction. For that we would actually need even another signal, even another break, because here, while the break above the wave 4 resistance area would be a signal that this structure is likely not going to extend within a 5-wave move to the downside, honestly, based on the internal structure within this area, we may need to consider that it could actually already be complete. We need to consider that this structure could already have a 5-wave move, and we may need a 3-wave correction and then still an extension lower. Although honestly, if we don't form another low, I probably do prefer to count this as only a 3-wave structure, but we cannot really get into all those details because within such small time frames we do get distortions all the time, and to be honest, this structure is actually quite difficult to be tracked as a reliable pattern in any type of scenario actually. I may actually need to consider here some kind of truncation within the wave C of the wave 3, where it didn't manage to actually form a lower low, but in the end we shouldn't focus too much on these details, but on the larger structure. And for now, within this wave 4, we could already have formed the top. Realistically, we have a 3-wave structure and we don't need additional extensions higher to consider this movement complete, but at the moment we may actually still be able to build here a fifth wave to the upside, because within this movement we have a 1, 2, a third wave up, fourth wave down, and a fifth wave that could still appear. And in such a scenario, I could be considering that the wave 4 correction is done. We did, however, we did in the end hold here the area of support for such a scenario, the 61.8% retracement, and we have a 3-wave correction, which means we can still track here a larger ABC structure to be developed. And once this actually builds a fifth wave and we form a larger 3-wave correction to the downside, we actually have a quite interesting one to set up, at least here in a smaller time frame. Now, no guarantees this will work out, because if we break here below the 61.8% retracement, it would rather be a signal that this structure would either start a fifth wave to the downside in the yellow scenario, or maybe form a larger correction within the wave 4, but nothing reliable for an actual trade setup. Sure, this could work out as something like a WXY or even an ABC movement, but nothing really worth looking for a trade for. Now, with this said, from a large time frame perspective, this is deep into the area of support. It's just that it's not necessarily an area here in orange between the $14 level all the way down to the 2.8 that necessarily provides a high probability trade setup. It's not a 5-wave move, which if it was, it would have been a great trade setup to look for, but it's still quite deep within the area of support. And here we are decently close to a level that would signal, if broken, a high degree of likely failure. Now, with this said, we need to be tracking the internals. We need to be seeing if we manage to build here a fifth wave. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.